Coming up this weekend, somebody between these two is going to go 19-3 with one no contest, and one guy's going to drop an L. We have Mark Mugen Striegl coming in, representing Philippines. He's going to be taking on Chaz Skelly. And for Chaz Skelly, he hasn't fought truly in the UFC since 2019.
Been a while.
He got a win over Jordan Griffin. He entered the cage to fight Jamahal Emmers last year. And then Jamahal had some issues backstage. Skelly gets to do a weird interview and get paid. And now we finally get to see him in a fight. And for Skelly, going back through, watching the fights, watching that weird Bobby Moffett fight that ends up his no contest on his record because Bobby Moffett had the choke. The referee stopped the fight, but Skelly protested. Then he protested for what, like a couple of years? And then they overturned it to a no contest. Kind of crazy to see that one.
It's good that they finally fixed something, though. Like, how many times do we see something controversial happen and then nothing ever gets resolved?
So that one ends up in no contest. But the craziest part about Chaz Skelly's record, he's been in the UFC forever. Made his debut in 2014, loses to Mirsad Bektic, has wins over Tom Ninamaki, Sean Soriano, Jim Ehlers, Edmilson Souza, a loss to Darren Elkins, win over Maximo Blanco. That was a performance bonus because he was able to get an anaconda choke in 19 seconds. Beats Chris Gritzmacher, lost to Jason Knight. The no contest against Bobby Moffett, the win over Jordan Griffin. There's only one fighter out of all those fighters I named that's still in the UFC. It's Chris Gritzmacher. So the longevity of Chaz Skelly is like...
Elkins isn't he?
He's like an old... and Darren Elkins, so there's two. But he's like an old junkyard dog. He's still here. He's got a positive record. He's coming out the other side. The weird thing for Chaz Skelly, though, you're 7-3 with a no contest, and he has a 33% takedown defense rate and a negative 1.33 strike differential. You don't normally see that out of a guy who wins so many fights.
I think that takedown defense stat is quite misleading, though. Because Chaz Skelly is such a talented grappler himself, he doesn't really mind getting taken down by people. Like
That's where I'm going.
Well, okay, I don't know why I handed it off to me. Here's the thing about Chaz Skelly. He has a very developed submission game, and he can do it in a variety of ways. This isn't someone who only goes to the back and tries to finish with a rear naked choke. He gets it done with a lot of head and arm chokes. They're sort of defensive wrestling submissions that we don't see them very often. It's very Matt Hughes-esque. But the thing about Skelly is, he's cut from the same cloth as fighters like Gerald Meerschaert, Paul Craig, those types of guys who, they might eat more shots than you'd like on the feet. They have... I don't want to say great stand-up. I'd call it effective stand-up. It gets the job done and helps them close the distance and get in on the hips of their opponents. But that's always what I'm concerned about when I watch a Chaz Skelly fight. It's, can he get the fight to the ground before he eats so much damage that he can't really come back in the fight? Because the Jason Knight fight, I think, is a good example of what happens when everything goes wrong for Chaz Skelly. Jason Knight, I know he didn't have the best run in the UFC, but there was a short little time period there where he was a really dangerous fighter. Look back at his fight against Ricardo Lamas. Like, that was supposed to be Jason Knight's big coming-out show. For Knight, though, he was able to sort of out-grapple Chaz Skelly and just be really unorthodox on the mat. And through those exchanges, he was able to get on top and land a lot of really good ground and pound. Luckily for Chaz Skelly, Mark Striegl isn't necessarily that type of a fighter. But anytime Chaz Skelly's in there, that's really what the breakdown for me seems to be. It's how can he get the fight to the mat and how can he use his physicality? Because for Skelly... he's not in the Jake Shields camp. He's not in the Brian Ortega camp. He's an intelligent grappler, but he does go for a lot of submissions, which can sometimes let his opponent get back up to their feet. But I do really like the overall submission game from Skelly. It is very complete, and it's relentless, really. Like, when he does try to go for a submission, it is very unique the way that he can chain different things together, and that's what sets him aside from just your average 36-year-old in this division.
And this is a fight that I'm really looking forward to coming up this weekend because Mark Striegl, I disagree a little bit. I mean, this guy is a Sambo guy. I mean, champion in Southeast Asia, and he's really put things together. I mean, 14 of his 18 wins coming by submission, and he's a guy that powers himself into takedowns. Like, I've seen really unorthodox ones where he goes for a low single leg and then he just puts his hand around the guy's waist and just kind of pushes him over, dumps on top, gets into top position, and then he's really able to have his way in some of these fights. He's taken on a decent level of competition, as much as you could really ask for, but it's always weird when the UFC decides to sign a guy off of, you know, a no contest. I mean, he had the fight against Sunichi Shimizu, UFC veteran. He has a first-round submission win against Kai Kara France on his record as well. But for Mark Striegl, it really is closing the distance, wearing guys down, taking them down, rinse and repeat. And the one thing about both of these guys do not have a very, fun or fan-friendly type of style when it comes to what they do on the feet. They are not the best strikers. So for Mark Striegl, I'm interested to see what we get out of him. Not just because, I haven't seen him before, but because for this camp, it seems like he's been training out of the MMA lab. And I'm really eager to see what we get training with a guy like Kyler Phillips, guys like Benson Henderson, the guys that train at that gym, especially in the lower weight classes. You can add a little bit more in terms of the wrinkles that you can show in your game, especially against a guy like Skelly, where Striegel's going to take you down, Skelly's going to try and submit you. I mean, what else can we get out of that? I'm eager to see, again, the game plan that we get out of Striegl, more than anything.
I think he is going to go for a lot of takedowns, but I do think that's going to be to his own detriment, because the way I look at this fight is, Striegl is a very talented grappler, don't get me wrong, but he relies on a lot of explosion for his grappling advancements, whereas Skelly is the much more consistent fighter out of these two. He's the one who will just plot forward for 15 minutes, and it is to his own detriment. Like, he will eat power shots for 10 minutes just trying to get that takedown at the end of the second round, early third round, because that's how dedicated he is to the game plan, and that's why I do like Skelly in this matchup, because if he can be consistent, and if he can at least be the one who initiates a lot of the grappling exchanges, I do think it's going to pay off for him, because we talk a lot about things like, you know, those water in the basement techniques, the leg kicks, the body shots, the things that add up over time. Skelly, since he isn't a talented striker, can't really rely on those techniques, but what he can do is be the first guy to initiate every grappling exchange, because I do think he has the superior cardio in this matchup. Again, and it speaks more to his output. Do I think Striegl has poor cardio? Not by any means, but he does do a lot of that explosion, a little bit of a reset period, and then explosion again. I think during those resets, that's when Skelly can have success, but the flip side of that could be, well, Striegl, every time he explodes, just gets the better of the position.
Well, I mean, the thing that scares me out of what you said, you know, if Skelly's going to get the win, he has to be the first one to initiate the grappling. Striegel's going to be the guy.
Not to initiate the grappling as in go for takedowns, but just be the one to get it into clinch range over and over. Because if you're the one deciding on when we're clinching, exactly like you said, Striegel's going to be going for those takedowns. You're almost playing into his game.
So the odds for this one, they haven't really changed all that much. Chaz Skelly open around a minus 220. He's still right there. Striegl open a plus 185, plus 178 on best fight odds. If we're setting an over under, Matt, we're having a look at the Topology vote. Surprise to us, they are to you. I'm going to say with Skelly, 67.5%. You're going to say over under?
I think they'll be lower just because of the inactivity.
So look at that. 535 total votes, 84% Skelly. You've got 56% by submission, 37% by decision. For the 16% that have Striegl, 52% by decision, 20% submission, 22% by knockout. I have Chaz Skelly in this fight, but there's certain fights on this card that I have a better read on than others. With Skelly, the inactivity, the fact that I've seen him dominated in certain grappling exchanges, the fights that he's lost, he's been out-grappled. Not necessarily totally outstruck. He's had some issues in some of the grappling exchanges, which is his bread and butter. Striegl, I really like the bare bones of his game. He's like somebody else that's on this card, Stephanie Egger. She's got a great judo background. Mark Striegl has a great Sambo background. It's just bringing all those pieces together. So I'm really eager to see this fight. It's one of my most anticipated of the weekend. I'm taking Skelly ever so slightly, though.
Yeah, I like Skelly in this matchup. I think it should be a fun grappling fight between these two guys. Just with Striegl, if he was a better striker and if he could explode his way into his takedowns using his striking a little bit more, I would favor him in this matchup. I just think he's going to have trouble later on the second and in the third round against a guy like Skelly, who is anything if not consistent with his approach, which is move forward, go for those takedown attempts, and just try to make this a grappling fight.
Look out for Striegl on his entries to leave his head wide open to the side for some of those defensive submissions of Skelly, but let us know down below in the comment section who you have in this fight. Both of us going with the man from Texas. We're both going with Chaz Skelly. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say,
let's get into it.